I'm Jen Bosworth Ramirez.
And I'm Gina Polici.
We went to theater school together. We survived it, but we didn't quite understand it.
20 years later, we're digging deep, talking to our guests about their experiences and trying to make sense of it all.
We survived theater school, and you will too. Are we famous yet?
Relatively. I mean, nothing ever feels... sometimes I have this thought, like, I wonder if anybody ever feels just really... chill about things. I think there are some people who they wake up and they're just like, yeah, I'm going to do this and this and this. And I just always feel like there's so much clamoring in the back of my brain for attention. You know, that I guess it's really just anxiety. I guess that's what it is. I just have a lot of anxiety. And I grew up having no idea about that. And I remember saying, you know, kind of early on in my relationship with Aaron, like that I didn't relate to, and he just laughed and laughed. He goes, "Are you kidding me? You are so anxious." It was news to me. I had no idea. And then it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that's why I do that. That makes sense. Anyway, bottom line is I never feel chill, but sometimes I feel less anxious.
Yes, I feel the same way. Like I don't ever feel. I think I'd have to be heavily drugged to feel really chill, and then it doesn't last. And also, there is something to be said for like, you know, anxiety is a motivator too. So like, all those things are motivators. So I feel like my anxiety. It's so interesting when I've been like profoundly depressed, I would say 2 episodes in my life, I've also been anxious, and I'm sort of grateful for the anxiety because it forced me
to you going. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm not a depressed person that stays in the bed. I may pace around and look crazy, but I'm not someone who sleeps for 12 hours a day. And look, I'm not saying I just feel like my anxiety was a motivator. It forced me to like, it was so uncomfortable that I was like, okay, well, I have to get help or get out of this house or do something different because this is intolerable, you know?
Yeah, you got to switch it up. But anyway, I'm so eager to hear about you. You made a brave, bold move and you sent your amazing...
To Nicolas Cage.
I don't think I said on this podcast how much I love your pilot.
Thank you.
It is so good. It's so good.
Oh,
and
thank you.
And what was especially fun for me, considering that we are working on writing other things together, is that I read it for the first time when that draft was already done. So I really got to experience it like an audience member. And I just, the whole time, it was such a page turner. Anyway, so you sent it to Nicolas Cage.
I did. All right, I entered it, a long time ago, I entered it into this logline contest before it was written, spoiler alert, and then they said, we want to see a full script, so that if you listen to the podcast, you know, like, we may have put on here, right, that I wrote the thing really short, and then I've been working on subsequent drafts, like, over and over with my mentor, Dawn. All right, so then that same company had a diversity initiative for women and people of color and all kinds of things to enter a script into. You get like a free logline class, pitch class if you win, and blah 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 blah. And I love this company, Roadmap Writers. Love them. I just find everyone I've met with has been amazing, and they're literally, their job is helping writers, and of course they have classes and stuff like that, but they actually seem to really give a shit, which is fantastic. So I entered Hold My Calls is my pilot into their contest, and by the time this airs it'll be common knowledge, so I got second place. So I know, and it's so awesome. Out of a lot of scripts, and part of that is then I didn't realize any of this, so this is such a news. And then I submitted through Coverfly to them, and then they rank your script. I didn't know that. And so my script was in the top 9% out of 50,000 scripts on Coverfly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is truly, and I have to say it's especially amazing because every contest does have, there's so many writers out there who are just dying to be noticed, and there are so many opportunities for it, but a lot of them don't lead anywhere. But this was like a prestigious thing, and to be in the top 9% is an unbelievable accomplishment. It's wonderful.
Thank you. And I feel like, what do I feel like? I feel like it's a long con. That's just what I keep saying. Like people ask me too, and I've heard this before of other writers and people in the industry talking about this. People keep asking me that aren't in the industry, what's happening with your writing? And I'm like, nothing and a lot of things and something. Yeah. And like, I think, and we've said it on this podcast, that I have to stop equating success with a paycheck, because you need a paycheck to live. That is, but it doesn't necessarily mean they don't go hand in hand. Like, it's not like I won prize money for this, but you win further, like you said, noticing and further exposure and like, so that we can move forward in this industry. And it doesn't look like a paycheck. I just,
yeah. And art, I'll just put the caveat that I'm sure that there are lots of professions that this is true about, but I only know about this one. So in the artistic field, it's kind of, I mean, what's the norm for us would not be the norm for other fields, that we could spend thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars and many years investing in ourselves. And that's the whole concept of like the overnight success, because nobody's an overnight success. Everybody has already invested a lot of time, energy, money, etc. into it. And it's just that, and and frankly, when people say actors get paid too much, I mean, sometimes I agree with it. And other times I'm like, yeah, but you don't know. You only see their successes. You don't see the 99% of the time that they're failing.
And I think that is exactly right on. And I think even like influencer culture, look, those people have invested in, I'm not saying if aliens come down and see it's gonna make sense. What I'm saying is they have invested. Anytime you see someone who is in the public eye, or like doing something, someone who is being noticed for something, unless it's totally random, has invested in what they're doing. You may not agree with it and you may not think it's art, but I've never met someone who has found notoriety or gotten noticed that hasn't put some amount of work into their cultivating even cultivating their brand. The Kardashians, the Real Housewives, that's a whole cultivation situation. You know what I mean?
It really is. It really is. And it takes as much work as anything else. And yeah, we have all these weird ideas about like what constitutes work, and I get caught in that sometimes too. Like, this is technically the thing that I spend all of my time that I'm not taking care of my family doing is my hobby. But it doesn't feel like a hobby. It feels like I'm, running as fast as I can to get a career online. And when I'm eventually paid for it, it'll be like, yeah, that's what I was doing this whole time. It's
right.
Just that,
right. And I feel like there's the other thing of like, it could happen. It feels like you can go from, I was talking to a friend who's not in the industry last night, like you can go from $0 to $600,000 in a night, but that's really back pay for all the work you've been doing.
And forward pay, because you may not get that $600,000 again for quite some time.
Absolutely. So managing money is another thing.
Hey, let me run this by you.
What I wanted to run by you is, so I'm really interested in and fascinated by, in a similar way as how I'm fascinated by influencer culture, I'm really fascinated by fandom or stan culture. And I've spent a lot of time hearing about it in my various cultural things that I consume. I feel like I kind of know a lot about fandom, but what I'm wondering about is, what is the basic human need that fandom fills? Because I know it's a basic need. I'm not saying, it's not that everybody's a hardcore fan of something, although lots of people are, but the way in which people are fans of something and the meaning that it carries for them. And like 9 times out of 10, it has actually very little to do with the thing that they're a fan of, right? It's about them. And what did we do before there was mega stars? Like, what was the fandom? How did this need get met before that?
That's a great topic. And I think what first comes to mind is like, I think you said it really well when you said, it's about something else. And I think it's about feeling a part of something. So like, I'm thinking of the Beehive or whatever they call the lambs that Mariah Carey calls her little lambs.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a sense of belonging to something, like, and maybe gladiators had huge fans back in the day.
Wait, are you saying maybe they did or they did?
They did, but I'm saying,
okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that it is. I think it is the innate universal desire to belong to a group that can do things that are bigger than the one person, or that are to not feel alone, but also to rally around an idea or I don't know. It's a great question.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it has to do with wanting to feel part of it's a community, it's a tribe. And what I think are funny are stories of when like people, you'll hear famous people talk about encounters that they have with fans. And I don't know if anybody's said it exactly this way, but in all the stories I've heard, there is somewhat of a thread, which is like, I get the impression that, and I've never fanned out on somebody. I've never like asked somebody for their autograph, or, I mean, I've certainly been standing next to Kirstie Alley in the grocery store, of who I'm not really a big fan, but like being like, oh, wow, there she is. Like it does do something to you when you're in front of a famous person. It does do something to you.
Yeah, we recently saw Jay Leno and walking down the street in where the hell were we? Burbank. And I don't care. I mean, I like Jay Leno. I have no opinion about Jay Leno as a comedian. Like I know he's famous and he has a lot of cars. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we all freaked out. It was Miles, myself, and another couple, and his mother, the mother of and Jay Leno was walking down the street, and we all simultaneously went, "Oh, hi, Jay Leno," as if we knew Jay Leno.
Yeah.
And Jay Leno was lovely and said, "Hi, guys," and it was the weirdest thing. I don't care about Jay Leno as a celebrity, but I got freaked out.
Oh my gosh! And maybe it's because I feel like I've had a ton of celebrity living in New York. I saw Tina Fey. I saw Bill Hader. I saw Samantha Bee. Yeah. I saw so many people. Maybe it's because I've never it's never been somebody that the only person I can think of is, like Meryl, like if I saw Meryl Streep, I think I might do that fan thing. But yeah. But regardless of whether or not I'm a huge fan, it is something about, like, I was sitting at an airport once with 50 Cent, and it's like he smelled so good.
Yes.
And I felt like he was vibrating something special.
Right?
It's its own thing.
It's so true. There is it's its own thing. And I don't know if the fans create that thing or these people innately have that thing and then it's cultivated more. It's so chicken or egg, but I have the same thing. I'm trying to think of like, I mean, I've had that, and working for Nick Cage, I had celebrities run-ins all the time, and
tell your Lisa Marie, you guys.
Oh, she was horrible to me. She was horrible. So Nick married Lisa Marie Presley for like 4 months or something, but they were dating, and she came to the office and she was the rudest. we weren't supposed to look her in the eye or something. I can't remember the rules, but I worked at the front desk. I was basically the secretary, you know? So I worked at the front desk, and she had a potty mouth on her, but like, I don't give a shit about that, but it was like a directed and mean potty mouth, which I don't appreciate. So I think she said, "Where's the motherfucking bathroom in this?" or something.
That's what you told me.
Where's the motherfucking bathroom in this place? And I was like, okay, what is happening? Unnecessary. Also, just go to the bathroom. What do you care? I was so weird. It was unnecessarily rude. I couldn't understand why. But then I had my favorite celebrity encounter was with Benjamin Bratt. Who was He's the most so cute. He was stunning, and he came in for a meeting, and he was at the time dating Julia Roberts, and it was around the time, I don't know, she did an Oscar. She was at the Oscars and had hair under her armpits, and everyone lost their mind. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, I was around that time. I don't know why I'm remembering that, but he was the nicest, most handsome, most genuine. I wanted to date him immediately. I was like, okay, how can I, I have the cute, and so our offices on Sunset Boulevard overlooked the hills. We were on the 9th floor, and there were houses, and we went and we were waiting, and Nick was doing something with, I don't know, he was on the phone or something. So we were waiting, and we got to talking, and then we got to going into the conference room, which was all glass, and it overlooked the hills. And he said, "Which house do you want?" And I said, "Oh, I want that one." And he said, "I want that one. And then we can attach a telephone wire, like a can on a wire." I was like, absolutely.
Yes, Benjamin Bratt, I will marry you. Thank you so much for asking.
It was the most, and he said, that shirt, I had like a peasant blouse on, and he was like, "It looks like my ex-girlfriend. She used to wear things like that." And his ex-girlfriend I knew was like Jennifer Esposito, who I really liked. I was like, oh my, he was so kind. And we talked about, he's Peruvian, and I talked about being Colombian. And his mom was a political activist. So anyway, I had some lovely, but he had that thing where I was just like, I want to be near him. I want to be.
They put a spell on you.
Yes!
That's what it feels like. They put a spell on you. I felt the first time I ever saw a real life celebrity was when I was a little kid. We did one of those. Do they still have where you get a map and you drive and look at the stars houses in LA? Okay. Yes. Well, we did that, and we drove. Lucille Ball and Jimmy Stewart lived on the same street. And when we drove by, in retrospect, I think that they know what time the bus comes, and that's when they come outside, because Jimmy Stewart was mowing his own grass. I mean, like the most adorable thing, and gave a wave. I mean, honestly, like so in character.
Oh my gosh.
And Lucille Ball was going out to check her mail and gave a wave. And I remember seeing them and feeling really sort of starstruck. So, but the other thing that's sort of interesting about the whole fandom thing is this funny little dance between the adored and the adoring, where at different times they both don't want to own up to the fact that one loves to be adored and one loves to do the adoring, but they also, there's an exchange there. Even people who really complain about fans, even Sean Penn, who famously, was shooting guns at the helicopter that was taking pictures of his wedding to Madonna, like, he got something out of that. He wanted that in a way that was almost more showing how much he needed it than somebody who doesn't pay the paparazzi any mind, right?
Yep. It has to be. They have these celebrities, especially ones who act out like that against the paparazzi. Granted, it's probably so infuriating and maddening to have them, but also the celebrity themselves must have an unmet need that is getting fulfilled through these crazy ass interactions with the press and their fans. Like, they just must, or else they would, like you say, ignore it and be like, whatever, let's go about our business.
And we've had, a couple of encounters with people who have some degree of fame, who what they're doing, the dance that they're doing with us is they want to be wanted.
Yes.
And then we go, okay, we want you. And then they don't respond, you know?
Right.
And it's like the thing that they're chasing is the being wanted.
I mean,
they want to be in the position of saying no. I feel like there's a thing there. Like I just want to be in the position where I can feel you wanting me so that I can tell you no.
Yeah. And I think it's like dating or anything else, the same thing. It's like, I guess it comes down to, we all really, really want to be wanted. And it reminds me of Bhutan, the country, where they have a rule where no one can be more famous than anybody else. I'm probably totally screwing that up.
I'm sure you're right.
There is some kind of law, or I don't know,
just a cultural norm, maybe,
where they don't recognize fame. They don't, that's not a thing there. And it's interesting. I wonder how that culture is, but we love that. So I think you're right. It's a dance. And also, people can't have celebrity without fans.
Yeah.
You can't be a celebrity without the other people. You're not in a vacuum, and people are highly aware of that, whether it manifests in all kinds of ways. But like, you don't have the Kardashians without the people watching the Kardashians. You don't have,
Yeah. And also, regarding the upset that people feel, and I feel compassion for the people who, the Britney Spears of the world, who've just been so really targeted and stalked, and I have compassion for it. But and I don't like this phrase, oh, well, you signed up for it, because that makes it sound like you signed up to have stalkers or
to be abused. Right.
It's not quite that, but I'll say it to you like this. Bill Murray, actually, he is probably one of the, if I saw him, I think I would probably get really excited.
Sure.
But famously, he doesn't have this problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, he encounters fans. He's always has time for them. He never seems put out by it. It's also not a mob, and he's also not being. So I feel like he creates environment for himself and admits a vibe of like, yeah, you know me and I'm cool with that, and sometimes I feel like talking to you and sometimes I don't, but it's not a big deal. I feel like that people who get all exercised about it, or who profess to get all exercised about it, aren't acknowledging the thing that they're just not acknowledging the thing that they need out of the situation, and that kind of bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is. It's the transparency of like saying, yeah, this is a business. This is part of this business of being in the public eye, is a back and forth with fans who support me, and sometimes are a little bonkers and sometimes mean, and yeah, like, let's be transparent about the whole thing.
What about when you're on set and there's somebody, and there's this feeling where you can tell they want you to make something out of them, and when I first started going on sets with my son, I mean, not for myself, I just adopted the approach of like, don't look at anybody, don't talk to anybody, just kind of, but I've learned that people don't necessarily like that either. Like, the times where I've truly ignored the celebrity in the room, they engage in an encounter with me.
Yeah, it's so true. We were vacationing, and we happened to go to this fancy place that I adore called Esencia in Mexico, and it's amazing. And there was a fashion designer there named Jason
Wu.
Yeah, Jason Wu. And he kept staring at me. I was very dressed up. I had a huge tattoo on my back, and I could tell he wanted me to talk to. I got this vibe. I'm like, why does this guy? So I finally, and he had designed recently a plus size line for Eloquii, I think, which is a brand, and I had bought a piece. And so I finally was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I fell into the thing, and I went over, and he was lovely, but I just said, hey, I love your stuff. And he's like, oh, I love your tattoo. So we got into a whole thing, but you could tell and I think because you and I are former therapists, and we're really in tune with people's, I did what he wanted me to do, and it was a lovely exchange.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a lovely exchange.
Right.
Today on the podcast, we're talking with Sean Gunn. Sean Gunn went to the theater school at DePaul University with us and then graduated and went on to do amazing things and is still doing amazing things to this day. He is an actor and a writer and a producer. You know him from the Gilmore Girls and more recently from the Marvel movies. And he's a present, authentic, hilarious human. So please enjoy our conversation with Sean Gunn.
I also gotta say, Sean, you look so good. You look
yes,
so healthy.
You do. You look amazing.
You
Well,
do. You have
thanks.
this glow.
I think part of first of all, the lighting is great. I'm in the garage where I am right now, and the lighting is great, so that helps. And I'm tan. I've been out in the sun like almost every day, so it's like
super healthy.
that helps.
It's crazy.
You have a great glow.
Yeah.
So everybody, Sean already apologized for the audio quality in his AirPods, and I told him it's fine because he's so amazing that anything he says will reverberate no matter what. Congratulations, Sean Gunn! You survived theater school.
I did. I made it
with us, and I
know.
I was just revisiting the website. Of course, everybody and their mother who has been in Sisterly Feelings, who's been on this podcast, has talked about like the phenomenon that was Sisterly Feelings. But you were also in, which I had totally forgotten about, hasn't come up yet on the podcast, The Bourgeois Gentilhomme by that John Jenkins directed. Did you forget about it too till just the second?
I was a crew on that show.
Oh, well, you're on the website as cast.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
The Bourgeois Gentilhomme. No, they did that in our first year. They did that in.
Did you have a small role at all in it?
Oh, you know what?
Yeah,
you know what?
Probably
That's
did.
right. I was even. You know how sometimes they would do that with the like the crew members. Like I was a waiter. I came out and like had a towel over my arm at one point and like served somebody a drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even have a line or anything.
Do you remember the show itself?
Yeah, I remember. It was funny because I bumped into one of the leads at a dinner, like a year and a half ago, or pre-COVID a year ago, and I didn't know who he was. Like, I forget the actor's name, but he was one of the lead actors in that show, and I was like, "Holy Christmas!" That was my first crew, was Bourgeois Gentlemen, and I remember doing. I didn't remember till just now that I walked on and was in the show.
Okay, yeah, they do. They put everybody who, they're actually, you're not the first person we've surprised with reminding them that they were in the show.
Like, I'm not in that show, and then they're like, "Yes, I was. I was guard number 7 that like carried so and so off stage." Yeah.
Well, I've been trying to remember. So I've been listening to this podcast, by the way, like a maniac. So I've listened to a whole bunch of episodes. It's a little harrowing, sometimes cathartic. It's a little like having therapy at times, but it's really cool. But I've been trying to remember, and I can only remember 5 of the 6 shows that I did. But
so which ones do you remember besides Bourgeois Gentlemen and Sisterly Feelings?
Well, yeah. Well, I remember. Okay, in my 3rd year, I did Prince and the Pauper on the main stage.
Right.
With Eric
Slater?
No, he was a year ahead of us. And he was Eric Conley, and he was, and he's a full 6 inches shorter than I am. So in order to make us look the same, I had to slouch during the whole performance, which was pretty funny. But that one was really fun because it was a kid's show, and we all got punchy after a while, and we started just doing things to amuse ourselves a few weeks into the run. But I remember Jen Ellison and Lorenzo Medrano and Nate Biddick were all in that show, and Joe Harris. So I did that. I did Dangerous Liaisons, or Les Liaisons Andalouses, directed by Nick Bowling. And then I did something else in my third year that I don't remember, that I'm sure was a workshop and was not, but that's what I don't remember. And then my fourth year I did Freedom of the City with Shauna Flanagan, where I had a really small part, and I was super bitter about it because I had a really small like ensemble role. Like that was when you got ensemble, that was a kiss of death, as you remember.
Yeah.
And then I did Sisterly Feelings.
I was kissed many times by that death.
But then it was great. Then I did Sisterly Feelings, which was awesome. And then Shauna cast me in Raising Captivity, which was the last show that I did, which
we talk about a lot.
I've heard of it a couple times.
Yeah, we talk about it, but I always have the wrong information about it. You are the person I definitely remember, because that bit about how you're teaching the baby and he's almost walking, I literally peed my pants. It was so embarrassing to leave that room, because I don't know if you heard the episode where I said I kept looking around at everybody else who was laughing but being like, you don't get it. It's much funnier than you think it is. It's so funny. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's so funny. And the thing that I remember about you is that the things you said in the in-between times, or in auditions, or in the Tupperway. Do you remember Tupperway? Do you remember this, Sean?
Not well.
So Tupperware. Okay.
No, this is when you had to audition for Sisterly Feelings. The thing was make the director laugh. You had like 90 seconds to make him laugh. And
everybody did not do it.
Panicked, and we all did a terrible job, and we didn't get any laughs. And your thing, I'm not sure if you got any laughs or not, but you did get cast, so must have been.
It was
your
hilarious.
Thing was that you stood in the middle of the stage, and you had somebody stage right throwing Tupperware at you, and you said Tupperway. That was the whole thing.
It was the funniest. But the thing is, I don't know how I heard about it, because we weren't in each other's.
No, it's from me. I remember it. It's just I didn't get to see it, but I remember what you told us what you were planning to do. And I thought that
to me was the funniest bit, and I think the reason it's so funny is because it just is sort of like it. You made it make sense. I don't know why, but I just think whenever I have a Tupperware, I say Tupperway, and I crack myself up. The other thing I remember about you that was really stunning to me was that you and your friends did the dumbwaiter.
Yeah.
Right? As a side thing.
Yeah, we just did it on our own. We were like, to hell with this. We're doing what we want to do.
But you removed a ceiling tile.
Yeah.
And there was a lever pulley system. And I remember thinking, I so remember thinking, these people are going to do, once they graduate, something is going to happen with these folks that is not going to happen with the rest of, because it was so, I couldn't believe people were taking the time outside of the school to do this. And it was a great show. Do you remember that show, Sean?
Oh yeah, I directed it.
Great.
Yeah. And I kind of, oddly enough, I sort of started to drift into wanting to be a director more than an actor by the time I was at the end of it. But I look back at that as a deviation. It's partly because the school kind of messed with your mind so much that I was like, oh, maybe I should be doing this other thing. And then I took Jim Ostelhoff's directing class. I just went to him and asked him if I could take his MFA directing class. And because Sarah Charper and I were good friends, and she was taking it as an acting student. I was like, oh, you can do that? And I just went to Jim and asked him if he would take me in it. I didn't get a grade, or I was, essentially auditing it, but took that class, and I loved it. And I was really, really into that. And I was into directing. I started to really enjoy directing, but I do think that a part of that is what you guys have talked about a lot. A part of that was really lacking a lot of positive reinforcement about my acting, and not feeling good about what was going on with my acting career, which I look back now and I'm just like, what in the hell was that school doing?
What are your big takeaways about what they were doing besides lack of positive reinforcement? I mean, were you getting messages that you're now revisiting and saying you don't agree with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just lack of positive reinforcement, because the school's purpose, its function, I don't think, is to coddle the people who are in the classes. That's not the important thing. But what what I do really take a lot of issue with was this idea that we were all supposed to be setting ourselves up for this life, as I remember Jim Osselhoff put it, a life on the fringe, a life as like outsiders who were working our way in, and they were like setting us up to not make a living in this profession that was we're in a school that's supposed to be teaching us how to be professionals in this business, and then by the time we graduate, they're kind of like, just so you know, you're probably not going to be a professional in this business, or they're like, or like just how much disdain they had for film and television acting, where like it was like an add-on at the end of 4 years. It's like, oh, and here's 1/4 of acting on camera, even though that's where all of the jobs are in the industry that we're about to enter. And how they would, always, it was like, oh, the theater is so great, and it's like you're slumming it if you're doing TV jobs. But then you go into the offices of the teachers, and who do they have on their walls? They have all of the film and television. So it's like, this is great. This is what, like, we kiss the asses of all of these people. However, you're not probably going to be any one of those people.
And I think that's absolutely right. It's crazy making. That's a crazy making way to teach something, because it's saying don't do this, but do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And they put I could just riff for a while, but it's like they put all of this import into the what do you call it? The end of the year, the
showcase.
Yeah. The showcase. And it's like they set us up. So it's like, oh, by the way, okay, so you've been working day in and day out for hours and hours and hours and hours a week for 4 years. But now these 120 seconds are going to determine whether or not you have a viable, way of making it in this career, which was so messed up. It's like, I wish I could go back and speak to, myself and my classmates before we did those showcases and give us some pieces of advice.
But you got an agent from that, didn't you?
I did. I got an agent in, I got some agents in Chicago, from that. And then I had some pretty cool meetings in LA, but nothing came of it. I mean, it wasn't, even though I had meetings and other people didn't, it wasn't any better for me than, it didn't do any more for me than the people who didn't have meetings. I like went on an audition. I met the head of comedy casting, I think, for CBS. And she was like, oh, are you moving to LA? And I very foolishly, because nobody had prepared me, I was like, well, if I have reason to move to LA, I'll move to LA, as though she was going to offer me a job.
Right.
If I had known, it would have been like, oh, you're moving to LA. Let me set you up with a couple of agents that I'm friends with. And I could have started right away, but instead I'm like, oh no, I'm going to start a theater company with my friends in Chicago.
Sean, everybody we talked to that had meetings in LA, I didn't have any, but people that did, the number one question they didn't tell us how to answer is, are you moving to LA?
Right.
They should have just told us to lie and say yes.
I'm moving to LA. Yeah.
Yes, I'm moving to LA.
It doesn't make any sense. It could have changed. I mean, look, things happen for a reason, but it could have changed the course of like 10 people we've talked to's lives.
I would actually adjust that to say they should have told us to tell the truth and say, yes, I'm moving to LA.
Right. Because we ended up doing that anyway.
Right. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I loved living in Chicago, and I love the Chicago theater scene is great. But, like I said earlier, if you want a job, there's a lot more jobs in LA than there are in Chicago. And that was what we were all kind of there for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How did you end up at the theater school? I'm really curious, because I know you're from St. Louis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I making that up in my head?
No,
okay.
I'm from St. Louis.
How'd you end up?
I was like, I was one of those weird kids who I knew I wanted to be a professional actor when I was 5. When I was old enough to know what a profession was, I'm like, I'm going to be an actor. And so I was always kind of on the path. I did plays in high school, and I did my research of where the best sort of acting conservatories were, and I auditioned for Juilliard, and I auditioned for DePaul, and I wanted to really get into one of those, and I got into DePaul, so that's where I went. My backup schools were schools with really strong theater programs at the time, but I kind of knew what was in store for me, and I wanted to be, and I still feel in a lot of ways like I was a very kind of angry, and I was not the most pleasant person in college, and like in those years of my life, which is funny. I have to make a joke about this.
Okay.
Jen, that I was listening to Lee Kirk's episode, and you said to Lee, you said, I remember you as being like the nice one out of your group of friends. And I heard that, and I was like, I wonder then who she's implying that the mean ones out of that group of friends.
I just always thought you guys were so cool.
We were
and
like
I
joined at the
remember
hip, Lee and I. So, and he always got credit for being he was
For
kind of the
being
nice
nice,
one, but
yeah.
he
he
got a
was
little
probably
more
the
credit than
biggest.
me.
What if he was like the biggest asshole ever, and you were really the?
No,
I just
no.
remember being
I
really
was
wanting to
an
be
asshole.
friends. Oh well.
But I was also kind of, I was like so driven, and I was very like, if I could go back, I know I would be a much nicer person, but I also cut myself a little slack because I was like very intense and very much like I'm doing this so everything we're doing is so incredibly important to me. At least at the time I thought, and I was in anybody that wasn't as serious about it or wasn't as sure, which of course they had every right to be not as sure, but anyone who wasn't as sure, I felt like like they were in the way or something, or that they were like taking time away from
the serious business.
Yeah, which is lame, but whatever. I was 19.
But
18,
you did
19.
seemed like a professional actor already, and I think there are some people that just are driven like that and that know what they're doing, and I think there is something to be said for that, because I do think it behooves you sometimes in a conservatory to have that attitude, because it is a professional training program.
Yeah.
The rest of us, I don't know what the hell we were doing there. I don't know. But the professional actors, they had a good attitude. They were like, we're professionals. This is what we do. And I was like, I drink Mickey's Big Mouth 40s. That's what I do. So,
well, I drank plenty of Jameson. And, but I almost got cut though, even with that. And which now.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was on warning, and then my second year. And it's funny, I did for our scenes, you do those incredibly intense scenes at the end of your second year in front of the whole faculty. And Jen Ellison and I did a scene from the Harold Pinter play.
Birthday party? No.
Yeah.
Betrayal, old times.
Birthday party.
The birthday party. And it went really, really well, right? It was a really good scene. And I was on warning at the time, but for some reason I wasn't that nervous. I thought that they were like warning me to just kind of like give me a little kick in the pants, and that I wasn't, I think I just thought they're not really going to cut me though, because I felt like I was such a good student in terms of like at least giving all my effort all the time. And then a couple of years later, I had a beer with Rick Murphy after some show that we saw, and it came up, and he'd mentioned that he's like, yeah, I remember you did that scene with Jen, and it was so good. It was like the first work that you had done that made the faculty really feel like, oh, this guy's really got something. And I said to him, I was like, I said, oh yeah, I know. I was on warning. He said, I know. And I said, but they weren't really going to cut me, were they? And Rick Murphy's eyes got really wide, and he went, oh yeah, absolutely. You were going to be cut if you didn't perform well in that scene. And it's weird how we think back on that now, you know, because that's whatever. I mean, that would have been, gosh, you know, 20, almost 30 years ago, I guess. And just how would that have changed my life? Like, what if I wasn't on that day, or what if I went up in my lines in that the thing, and how would it have changed things? It does not give me a good feeling to think about that.
I don't know. I think you would have just moved to LA and been fine like you are. But I mean, I understand why you have that. That's
I don't know. I might have quit. I had a pretty fragile psyche at the time. I don't know. But I would like to think that I would have just moved to LA and quit. And
yeah. Well, I mean, so we're talking about you took it very serious from the beginning. I felt like you were an adult from the very beginning. That's how it came across to me, was like, and maybe that was just your defenses, and Lord knows we all were just
like an adult. I had older siblings.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of 6, and so I learned how to pretend I was an adult.
That's right.
I see. That makes sense. But your anger, when you were talking about being angry, I mean, we weren't close or anything, but how I interpreted your anger was like what you already said, a frustration about people who didn't treat it like it was, you know, the most important thing that they were doing at the time. People who were treating it like college instead of like a preparation for a career. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you even know about DePaul and Juilliard? Like, did you have teachers at your high school that were really like helpful, or did you just learn all that stuff on your own?
I learned it on my own. I went and got, you know, like, again, I had older siblings, so they had they had college books about how to study for different types of programs and things like that. And I would, you know, I did research and looked up lists of what were the best, you know, acting training programs in the country.
That's so cool.
And then I just did research, you know, and tried to find them.
You mentioned starting a theater company with your friends, St. Ed.
Yeah.
So you left so you directed The Dumbwaiter. That was sort of the beta test for that theater company. You what is your
audio? Is this audio killing you guys, or is it okay?
No,
okay,
we hear nothing.
Good.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good. It's through my thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. No problem. So you start this theater company. At the time, I mean, I'm assuming you felt like this was going to be your thing. You were going to be in charge of this theater company, and it was going to go on and be one of these long-lasting theater companies. But my impression is that what started to happen is that you all just started to get work as actors, and that's why it disbanded. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of. It was twofold. It was like, first of all, we started this theater company at the same time opened this coffee shop.
That's right.
At the Chopin Theater, which is still there, at the Triangle at Ashland, Milwaukee and Division. And we thought it would be very smart to have a full running coffee shop that was open 6 a.m. every morning, rather than just opening during shows, doing like sort of a soft opening, which actually would have been wise. We're like, no, we're just going to run this coffee shop. And it turned out that we were pretty good. We were okay at running a theater company and very, very bad at running a coffee shop. And that was the coffee shop. We had other people who were helping us out, but that was me and Lee Kirk and Anna Kanamekos and Nate Diddick. And Anne was still in school, but and she still had a year left. But me and Lee and Nate were running the coffee shop, and Val was always around, Valentine was always around, and Cabrera was always around, because they were parts of the theater company, but they weren't owners in the coffee shop. Anyway, after a year, the coffee shop, we ran it into the ground, and we had to like board it up and shut it down, which already put a damper on everything that we were doing. And then I started getting a lot of commercial. I started doing a bunch of commercials. I did like. I did something like I did like 10 commercials in 4 months or something crazy. Like,
holy
like
shit.
out of like a whole bunch. And then I did this independent movie that Judy and Tate Smith were in.
Yeah, Stricken,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Stricken.
Stricken. He talked about.
I remember.
I heard Tate talk about it. And I did this movie and became friends with Jamie Kennedy, who was one of the actors from LA who was in the movie. And I remember it was a pivotal moment in my life. We were out one night. We'd gone out and like shoot pool and get some drinks or something after work one day, which is like, we felt like such big shots, you know, like we had per diem, you know, and
baby.
we're like staying in this hotel in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And one night we came back after work, we came back to the hotel, and on the way up to our rooms, the receptionist stopped Jamie and had an envelope that had a script in it for him, and was like, oh, this is, you know, this came for you. And he was like, oh, it's a script that I'm supposed to read, that I might, you know, they're interested in me for, that I'm going to audition for or whatever. And I saw that and I'm like, I want that. That's what I want in my life, is I want that. I want to come home and I want to have a script waiting for me that I'm going to look at. And that was pretty much it. And then I went back to, I went back after that movie was done, and Lee and I, who had lived together for a long time, we're trying to figure out what we were going to do next with the theater company and blah, blah, blah. And I went back and I'm like, I'm moving to LA, you know.
Good for you.
And I had a brother there at the time whose couch I could crash on for a few months, and
you did it.
Yeah, it was the right decision.
Are all of your siblings in the industry?
5 of the 6 are. I have 4 brothers.
Wow.
And they're all in the entertainment industry. And my sister is an employment attorney. She fights the man on behalf of for gender equality issues. She's tougher than all of us combined.
That's amazing. Well, she'd have to have 5 brothers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But she lives in LA too, actually. So I've got a brother in Brooklyn, and then all of my other brothers have since moved out to California. And then of course, like, I don't know, I feel like my career is punctuated by a few, you know, like some of my career has some really smart decisions, or times when I capitalized on opportunities, and some has just some elements of incredible luck involved.
Like what? Give us an example.
Yeah, tell us the luck and versus the. I mean, I you're not the first person. Like, people who are working constantly and that are talk about luck, but I'd like to know some examples of luck.
Here's one example of luck that people don't think of a lot, is that, and I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about the showcase, is that when I graduated in 1996, I was a very, very castable type. Like, I would play this dorky sort of, like guys like me were getting all these roles of, you know, either like the goofy convenience store clerk, or the college, you know, goofball best friend or whatever. And I just had a look. I mean, I don't think I was any more extraordinarily talented than so many other people, but I looked perfect for that time. Like, and it was like right in that pocket, which is one of the things, by the way, I wish we had been told when we did showcases, is that like this is not a referendum on your castability for the rest of your career. This is going to show you who's castable right this second, you know, but your career is going to be long anyway. So that was,
I agree.
Something very lucky, but it's something much more lucky than that is that then like later in my career, my brother James is one of the most gifted like writer directors in the world, and you know, he's my brother, so we work together. And like, you know, he's been able to take me along on certain, you know, I already had a good television career before going to do Marvel movies with him, but I think that I'm doing a lot of these big movies, you know, in part it helps to have have these people as part of your sphere who can
know,
help bring you along.
I have a question about that in terms of, what do you think makes a family like that? Because let me just tell you something. My family is not that way. So my sister, God love her, is not making Marvel movies, and I'm not,
or any movies,
or any movies, not any movies. So what is it about the Gunn family? I'm serious. Like, I'm curious. What the hell? What happens there?
We've all been attempting to answer that question for decades, and I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's some combination of, you know, my mother was very much, she read all the modern baby rearing stuff in the 60s. Like she read Dr. Spock early, and she like was very much about, she knew that fostering the imagination for young children was super important. So that's like a little piece of it. My dad's from a big Irish Catholic family and was very outgoing. They're all lawyers, but they have this element of showmanship or showpersonship, I guess the word would be now, in them, and a very gregarious personality. I also think that in another life, my dad would have been a magnificent performer, you know, and his parents actually, even though his dad was like a judge and stuff, his parents met doing like summer stock theater on the Chautauqua circuit. And so I don't know, but there's also something about us being, there's 6 of us, but less than 8 years separates the 6 of us. So we're incredibly tight in age, and we were like a unit growing up, and we entertained ourselves, and we were all incredibly into pop culture, and we like listened to music and watched movies and watched TV shows and like created characters and stories, and like it was just,
it's like you were your own troupe of
like you would have been in vaudeville if it was 100 years ago. You would have been in the vaudeville circuit. I have to say, like, for the record, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was
You're old school?
It's interesting you bring that up, because that's another thing. You say that you're in vaudeville. Something that I feel like I naturally had an affection for, that they did not teach us enough of at the theater school, was that yes, I loved theater and I loved art. I wanted to be an artist, but I also loved show business, you know, and that is such an element of it. You can't make art unless somebody buys it, you know, otherwise it's a hobby. But if you want to do it as a profession, somebody needs to buy it. So there has to be an element of show business to what it is that you're doing. It took me a while to sort of sort through that as a creative entity. I think I was very low on it when I left the theater school, but it came back to me after a little bit once I started, like, you know, working on camera more. But anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for the record, I, as a parent of 3 children, your mother deserves a medal for reading any books whatsoever, but especially reading a bunch of pioneering child development books. That it's a word to the wise. Do read the books, because parenting is not necessarily innate. I mean, maybe for a lucky few. But what I'm thinking about is having that many siblings has to be a big part of your sense of humor. All of my memories about you from the theater school all relate to hilarious things that you said or did. Are you the funny one in your sibling group?
No,
or are you all funny?
No. I mean, we're all the funny ones in my family. I mean, I don't think I'm, you know, I try, but we all jockey to be the funny one in one way or another. Maybe if 2 or 3 of us more than the others a little bit, but like we're constant. The thing about being in a big family that really helps and really helped my acting a lot is timing. You learn that, like, you've got one narrow window to tell your joke. When you in a group with 6 people or 8 people when my parents were there, and you're all trying to like crack each other up, particularly when we're all teenagers and stuff, and we're trying to crack each other up. You got about a quarter of a second to get your joke in.
Holy shit.
To
Right.
maximize if you're going to get laughs, to be able to say it before somebody else says it. And if you miss it, it's gone. And so you learn timing that way. And that helped me immensely when I started doing work on camera and like auditioning for sitcoms and a lot of commercial work and stuff like that, where comic timing was incredibly important. And it's a massive strength of mine, and yet another strength that the theater school more or less didn't give a shit about. I mean, they didn't like, nobody was like patting you on the back saying you've got great comic timing, like,
Never.
and if anything, it was the opposite. It was like, stop trying to go for the laughs, stop trying to get laughs. Yeah, God forbid we should get laughs, right?
How did that work out in improv though?
Did you slay improv?
No, I'm not. I was able to kind of tread water in improv, but I don't, even to this day, my improv skills pretty much extend to being available for my other actors that I'm doing a scene with, so that when things go off script, I can stay with them. But I like scripts. I like lines, and and that's an old kind of show business thing too. It's like I like sticking more or less to what's on the page. I was not because when we did improv, as you guys know, in school, it had nothing to do with comedy. So it's all like the Spolin games and things like that, where it's all. And that stuff was hard for me to wrap my brain around, because I'm that's another thing that's still now. It's like I'm pretty cerebral in terms of how I analyze the work, and so I like to be able to take a minute with it and think about it, and that's when you're playing Spolin games, the whole purpose is to take you out of that. Which was good for me to learn, but was never my strength.
Well, I was just going to say, something about the theater school that just it's coming forward for me is that, like, and look, we've been doing this podcast a long time, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around. There are these huge gaps, right? And it's sort of like Spolin, stop thinking, don't be funny. And then when we graduate, it's the exact opposite of how to make money. So there is this, it's just shocking to me. It's like there's a whole year missing of how to connect the showbiz part, because people who liked showbiz did really well after not everybody, but after they graduated. So like, you liked showbiz. Inherent in the theater conservatory was a hatred of showbiz.
Yeah.
And yet those are the people that got paid their bills. It just makes me think about conservatories and how we can change them. Because like, if we came back and you had, Sean Gunn teaching a class on why showbiz is important, it might work. Like, there was a gap. There was a huge gap, and most of us fell into the gap, into the moat. We all fell into the moat, but there are people who did not fall into the moat or stay in the moat. And I think those people bridged the gap when they graduated. They bridged the gap. You were able to bridge the gap. Judy was able to bridge the gap. DeSmalshin bridged the gap. It's interesting. It's really interesting.
I think that there's the people who are really aware of what their strengths are, have such a leg up. And the school could have done a heck of a lot more to help people find that stuff out on their own, and to really kind of help people understand what their own strengths are. And also just in general, this whole notion that that Hollywood only cares about people who are pretty or beautiful, and that's the only way, if you're whatever, it's just nonsense. And it's something that really should be fought against. It's it's just not true. There's all kinds of different roles for all kinds of different people. It's I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm wondering if growing up in the family that you did, you were able to, and or maybe had to identify, oh, these are my strengths. Like my brother might be this or this brother might be that, but I can do this. Like, I don't know, like maybe it helped you somehow to, individuate, become an individual amongst a crowd. Because you had to, right? I mean, like, I don't know. I'm always trying to think, okay, like, what is the secret sauce that makes people make it? And I think and what I'm learning from talking to people like you is that it's a secret sauce is a combo platter of things. It's not just one thing, right? It's not just one thing that makes a career. It's just not.
Yeah. And I mean, first of all, I don't know. I mean, have I made it? I don't know. I still.
Well,
I still feel like
I'm
like, no. That's not fair. I make my living doing it, and I think that that's a benchmark that was always important to me. I remember when I was a kid, and I told my parents I wanted to be an actor, and they were like, "Well, we'll support you if you want to do it, but only 10% of actors make their living doing it." I think the number is probably much lower than that, actually, but that's what they told me. They were like, only 10% of actors make a living doing it. I'm like, okay, well then that'll be my goal, to be in that 10% of people who make their living. And so I try to remind myself that now, whenever I get really down on like roles I don't get or things that aren't happening in my career that I want to be happening, I'm always like, well, look, I'm doing it. I'm making my living doing this thing, and I have been for a long time. So,
let me say this. I wasn't going to say this to you, but I will. Before this interview, I was thinking about you, and I was thinking, I bet. Okay, my kids love all the Marvel stuff. I've never seen any of it, and it's not a slam on Marvel. So when I told my kids, for example, that I knew you, they still don't believe me. So when this podcast comes out, I'll finally have proof. But what occurs to me is, okay, Sean Gunn, intellectual, very rarefied sense of humor, like smart as all get out. Is it a prison to be doing one type of thing? Or maybe it's not. Maybe doing that gives you the opportunity to do the other things that you like when you have free time, but does it ever feel limiting?
The Marvel universe.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, okay. Not at all. For a few reasons. Not the least of which is that I don't. First of all, it's like, it's not your thing. Like no thing is for everyone. So like, there's nothing. It's like, even though Marvel has a large net, it's like, if you're like, oh, that's not my thing, I'm not into it, there's no part of me that's like, oh, how dare you? No, it's like, okay, cool, it's not your thing. Whatever. That said, I think by and large, the quality of the work that we create, I can say we, but that they create at Marvel, is very good. I mean, I think that the movies in general, particularly compared against what their competition is. So when you look in the realm of like, there's going to be a void where large tentpole action films that appeal to a wide audience, those movies are getting made one way or the other. It's not like we're either going to do that or we're going to do all indie films. Like, those films are getting made.
Right.
So once you accept the fact that those films are getting made, I think the quality of the Marvel films is quite good. Like, they're not all great, but they're awesome. And
don't get me wrong, that's not what I meant. What I meant to say is, it's so all consuming. You've done like 100 of these movies. Does it take up every single bit of your time?
No, I do other stuff. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I am able to do other stuff too, also. But even if I weren't, it wouldn't be a bad way to live. Okay. It's like, it's first of all, it's pretty cool to do something that so many people love and makes so many people happy. Like, that's gratifying.
Yeah.
also, I still get, I mean, I get recognized for Gilmore Girls way more than Marvel movies.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
People
one, you've got a whole look.
crazy
Yeah.
about Gilmore Girls. And
Yeah.
and Gilmore Girls had this weird like comeback after 10 years after it was gone, which was mind blowing to me. But no, you know, I'm able to. I'm not able to do anything I want. Like I do have like big chunks of my schedule that are blacked out because I'm going to do some of these big movies. But I love it. I love making those movies, particularly the Guardians movies. I mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are really good. You should watch them, Gina. They're really good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to.
really good.
After this
Crying.
conversation,
There's a lot of crying.
Also, my own brother made this movie. So like,
oh, I'm sorry.
Gosh.
I hope that wasn't insulting.
Oh my God,
I didn't mean it to be insulting.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, really not at all. I don't, it doesn't, I'm not invested in like every person ever, you know, seeing whatever work it is. Like, I don't, I'm just saying that, that like, it's mostly pretty cool, you know, and I've been able to do some, like, recently I've done some cool, smaller indie movies. And I'm also like, you know, I was telling you guys before we got on, I'm trying to, my wife and I are trying to get this movie made, and you learn, I mean, something I've known for a long time, that you learn that if you have actors that have a certain profile, you can raise money. People will give you money if you have an actor that's, and so like, I don't want to be famous because I want to get a nice table in restaurants, or because it's fun for me to get recognized when I'm in Home Depot. But I do want to be famous so that investors will say, yes, we'll give you money to make the movie that you want to make because you're in it. You know what I mean? Like that would be awesome for my for what I want to do. I mean, I feel like there's still so much like awesome work. I don't know.
Yeah, you're into the power. I mean, it seems I've always said I don't care. Don't think I'd ever want to be famous, but I'd love to be powerful, which is to say, you know, to have influence, to be able to make a, you know, to be able to be part of the conversation about what's influencing the culture is a huge gift. And I mean, it's a responsibility too, but it's a huge, huge gift. And I guess I'm pretty glad that it's, you know, for all the people maybe who have that position, who aren't doing something that great with it. I'm grateful for people like you who are, you know, who are finding, you know, the smart, interesting.
That. And I want to, you know, I want to make cool little movies and stuff too. Like I want to, you know, in the film, you know, when you do theater and you want to do that like little black box show that everybody loves and has this crazy long run, you know, there's a parallel to that in films. You make a movie for $1 million or $2 million or whatever, and people love it, and it's really cool, and it does a bunch of awesome festivals and makes it its money back so you can make another movie, you know. And like that's I chase that as much as anything else, you know, but you also you got to work, and the thing about doing the bigger movies is that it's great to have that as to know that you're employed is incredibly you know, I was talking about being lucky earlier. Like I was lucky that I got Gilmore Girls. I was you know, they liked me and kept having me back, so part of that was good stuff that I did, was part of that was skill. But also I understood the tone really well. I understood what type of television show that was. And so the creator of the show, when she saw me acting, she knew that I got it and wanted me to keep coming back. And then I ended up on that show for 7 years, and I didn't
7 years. Holy shit.
And I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have. You know, like I was into it, but I was also like, oh, I'm killing it right now. I get cast, and you know, I was like I just thought if I left, I thought I'd just go do another TV show. Like it would be that easy.
Right.
Right.
You know, and it wasn't. And then I left and I was like, oh, I miss that. I miss having a regular job and having you know, knowing where my next employment is coming from.
So you said that there were we've all identified so many things that we didn't get from the theater school, but what do you bring into a job? You know, if you're going on set tomorrow, what's one thing you know that you are bringing from your education at DePaul?
Well, that's an interesting question, just because I have so many hours on set now that it's hard to parse through what's what. I know that first of all, just the reverence for the profession itself. You know, I look at acting as a vocation and a job, you know, but the whole idea that that what we're doing isn't stupid or frivolous, like that was really important. And I know that I was a much better actor when I graduated from the theater school than I was when I went in. I know that all of the pieces helped make me better. John Jenkins' technique class really stands out as something that made me sort of help me realize when I was in it, like when you're in the pocket, like you can feel it. And that class helped me sort of isolate that. And all of just the nuts and bolts of things, like breaking down a script and understanding, you know, the boring stuff, like knowing where beat changes are and knowing what a beat change is and knowing that your intention shifts or changes, it beat changes, like just real nuts and bolts stuff was certainly all incredibly important. But I will say that just getting reps, being in front of the camera a lot of times helped me more than being in school did, you know, and that the idea that when we graduated, I don't know if anybody felt this way, but I think sometimes there was this idea that like we were supposed to be these fully baked, you know, artists that were like complete beings when we graduated, and just knowing that that's not it at all. Like you always have to be getting better. Like I would, like, to me, it's as important now, you know, the jobs that I'm doing now, it's like, it's super important to me that my work is better this year than it was last year. You know, like, if you want to keep getting better all the time, it's not it's not easy.
I love what you said about reps in front of the camera. Like, I think there is no substitute for me for practicing the real deal. And that was something that we didn't even touch on at school, really. We had that little class, but like, I really feel like my education in the entertainment industry started the first job I booked and is still, and it's hard because if you don't get booked, you can't practice. So that's why people take classes and stuff like that. But I love what you're saying about like, the reps in front of the camera are so important. And to do that, it's so doing the thing is what makes the thing better.
The school should be teaching more of that. I think. I don't know. Yeah. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with them because they never contact me about anything. And I'm like, I have the same chip on my shoulder.
Really?
Yeah. I have the same chip on my shoulder now as I had when I was there. And I was like, I feel like I'm busting my ass and nobody cares. And now I'm like, hey guys, I have a pretty good career. How come nobody's like calling me and asking me to do anything or whatever?
I was really surprised about that.
I can tell you why it is. It is because they don't, and I'm just going to speak honestly, they don't have their shit together. They don't have their shit together. Like I teach there.
Oh
and
God, that's right.
And I love them.
Wait, what do you teach there?
I love them I teach, who knows? I mean, I teach I teach acting. No, I teach acting, but it was weird in a pandemic, but they don't have, I want to run that school. I'm like, wait a minute, let's get these people like Sean Gunn and let's get these people know what they're doing and they can also teach like different things. It's a conservatory situation. It's a real clusterfuck sometimes. So anyway, I have a bone to pick with them too, and they have a bone to pick with themselves, and they don't know what they're doing. So anyway.
By the way, I've had long talks about whether the cut system is good or not, and because I was kind of on the fence about it, but I don't know. Some of them.
What's your point of view?
Well,
some people got to go.
No, I mean. I'll tell you that. Okay, like I don't know if you know Michael Rooker, but he actually went to the theater school.
Yeah.
Many in the '80s, and I've worked with him now. I've done a bunch of movies together. I play his sidekick in the Guardians movies. And he always said that when I told him that they quit doing the cut system, he's like, "Oh, that's it. That's downhill from here on out for that school." He's like, the cuts are the only thing that accurately represent what it's like out there with the actual cutthroat entertainment industry, acting industry is like. The cuts are the only thing that give you some sense of what that is actually like. I don't know. I'm less sure. I don't feel sure one way or the other because I think of my 20-year-old self and I think that I was almost cut, as I said, for like maybe if I'd blown that scene, I would have gotten cut, and I'd be pretty pissed if I had. I don't know.
I don't.
Yeah. Well, there's a corollary to the damage that the cut system can do. Like people like Joe Sikora who take it as their personal mission after getting cut to spite the theater school.
Yeah.
And then and end up having a great career.
Oh, I think of Sikora. Yeah, it's definitely true that the people who get cut and then are like really press on, like those
really press on.
Sikora is a great example because but he's a guy who was probably cut because people thought he was, because of for whatever reason, the person that he was at 20 years old rubbed people the wrong way, and so they decided that
they were frightened.
They were going to something like that. I don't know. Joe's a heck of a good actor.
Yeah, he was sort of defiant. No, he's a very good actor.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up, but any little last anecdotes or stories you want to make sure to include?
Or
I feel like
anything you would say to someone who's like, "Hey, Sean Gunn, I'm going to go to DePaul."
Don't go. No,
just get in front of a camera.
Now they're never going to invite me to do anything now that I said that.
That's all right. I won't be going back to teach probably. It's okay.
I mean, look, anything I would say to any person who is about to embark on that journey of trying to do it is that is essentially that what other people think of you is always going to seem incredibly important in one way or another. And you'll make it important, but it isn't, like it isn't. It's about the work that you're doing and getting better. And I do think that there's something, I'm an old softy in that I do still think there's something kind of beautiful and magical about not just pretending to be another person, but to try to share their lived experience. That's what actors do. We're trying to share with other humans what the idea of being a human is, when you cut it to its core, and that's not stupid, and it's not and it's not the most important work in the world, but it's also not.
But it's not
something.
Stupid.
It's not stupid,
It's real work.
I love that because I feel like when I hear actors interviewed, even still, people are always still apologizing for, I know I'm not curing cancer. I know. And I think it contributes to, because we don't have much in the way of arts education in this country, it contributes to a general feeling of yeah, of course, everybody relies on culture and media every single day of their lives, but they have this way of compartmentalizing it. Like it's frivolous. People really, frivolous. No, it's completely necessary, as we learned during the pandemic, when the first thing everybody started to do was binge television shows and watch movies. Yeah. I mean, it's actually quite essential.
Yeah, it's essential, and it's hard. It's not hard in the way that maybe, you know, that certain other jobs are hard, but it's like creating stories and presenting them and delivering them in a compelling way for people to get wrapped up in and enjoy or be moved by or whatever. It's not easy work, you know?
No.
Anyway.
All right, Sean, where can people find you? I think you're on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm on Instagram. I'm the Judge Gunn on Instagram. I'm Sean Gunn on Twitter. I do as much social media as I kind of need to keep my career relevant.
There you go.
There you go.
And you're relevant. And you're relevant,
Instagram,
so it's working.
It's just like everything is sort of like you kind of just have to do it. How's that for a plug for my own social media? I have a bunch of stuff coming up. I have
You do.
Yeah.
Tell us.
I did this really cool indie movie called Agnes that just premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, and I don't know when that'll be available, but it's coming out before long. And I'm in The Suicide Squad, which is out August 6th in theaters everywhere. I did a show for Amazon called The Terminal List. I did a really cool role on that, and I don't know when that's coming, probably later this year or early next year. And then I have Thor: Love and Thunder coming out in the spring.
Oh my gosh, you've been busy.
Of next year, and I'm going to shoot Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in a few months. So
congratulations.
That's fantastic.
It's good to be busy.
Thank you so much, Sean, for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this podcast. It's really cool to hear people's stories, and you know, whatever. Maybe we'll circle back and do it again if you guys do a second round.
Yes,
that would be fantastic. Actually, I for many people, I feel like a part 2 is important. If you liked what you heard today, please give us a positive 5-star review and subscribe and tell your friends. I Survived Theater School is an Undeniable Inc. production. Jen Bosworth Ramirez and Gina Polici are the co-hosts. This episode was produced, edited, and sound mixed by Gina Polici. For more information about this podcast or other goings-on of Undeniable Inc., please visit our website at undeniablewriters.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you.